What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today, a bittersweet day. We have the last full college football slate. It is January the 2nd. We have 4 games this Friday that we will break down in full. But before we get there, if you like this content, please consider subscribing to the channel or leaving a like on the video. Those two things help a small channel like this immensely, gets us in front of new viewers, and helps us continue to grow and keep doing this. So thank you. If you've done that, it really does mean a lot. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. We will be talking about sides and totals on this show. And that's it. So let's dive right in. We have a fun slate on deck, and it kicks off with an interesting one. Rice is taking on Texas State, and the spread has gotten a little bit out of control. This is -16 in favor of Texas State. And the total in the game remains at 56.5. This is the Armed Forces Bowl, played in Fort Worth. But as usual, we'll start these with coaching changes, opt-outs. Anything after that will be resume and player personnel matchups. For Rice, we do have a few transfer portal guys. Chase Jenkins, their quarterback, is in the portal. He is not going to play. They also saw Dalen Alexander at running back, Drayden Dickman at wide receiver, John Long, an interior offensive lineman, a reserve, and Play Wide, a reserve safety, go into the portal. Couple injuries. Landon Ransom Goals has been out. He's missed the last 6 games. Kari Crump and Davion Hook have been injured at corner. But we got news that Texas State is going to have basically everyone playing this game. The only notable player that's in the portal for them is Brock Riker. Couple other guys, Justin DeLeon, he left week 14 early, but that was a month ago. Bryce Carter's been out the last 2 games at defensive tackle, and Will Mitchell's been out a while. But overall, there aren't that many opt-outs in this game. But when we saw Chase Jenkins, the QB for Rice, at the portal, we saw the line move 6 points. Now, resume-wise, to get here, Rice was not bowl eligible, so they had to get here on a technicality. A couple teams opted out. That's how you get Rice. Their only wins out of bowl-eligible teams were against UConn by 3 and Louisiana Lafayette by 2. Got blown out against Houston, lost to Navy, lost to Florida Atlantic, blown out to UTSA, blown out to Memphis, blown out to North Texas, blown out to South Florida. This is not the strongest bowl team. You probably don't need me to tell you that. They weren't originally bowl-eligible. Texas State, however, kind of a weird season. They only beat 2 bowl-eligible teams, UTSA and Southern Miss, and they had a lot of losses. Arizona State, Arkansas State, Troy, Marshall, James Madison, Louisiana. The weird thing is when you look at post-game win expectancy, 57% against Arkansas State, 67% against Troy, 98% against Louisiana. You could argue this team should have 3 additional wins and be a 9-win team. You could very, very reasonably make that argument. But as far as it goes for this contest, they still have 6 wins, and they end up in this contest. Anyway, player personnel. So who is Rice going to turn to without Jenkins? The problem is their backup also entered the portal, Drew DeVilliers. Their third stringer, AJ Padgett, they moved him to tight end once they kind of morphed into this option offense. So the speculation is we're going to see either redshirt freshman Lucas Shearhorn or true freshman Patrick Creighton Jr. The pair of them attempted 10 passes for 27 yards. It might not matter because this is an option offense. You're not really asking the QB to do a lot. So I don't know if this is the biggest difference as far as like QB drop off from starter to backup, like this on paper should not be a drastic one just because the QB's not really doing anything. As far as the offensive line, this unit was bad all season long, but they were a little bit better in run blocking, 84th, so you come in slightly below average there. They had 3 above-average starters with Sean Sullivan at left tackle, David Stickle inside, and Cole Principe inside. Only 2 weak links, but it didn't really work. Quentin Jackson, their lead rusher, 4.9 yards per carry for him. Jenkins was the second leading rusher on the team, and they just didn't have anyone else besides these players. So this is a concern in this contest. We just haven't really seen the young guys. We don't know. And then it's not an option attack that really utilizes the receivers. Plus, we don't know if Dickman will play. He was their second leading receiver. He's in the portal. All this kind of amounts to we just aren't really expected to get a lot out of Rice's offense unless one of these QBs is a true difference maker. You're going up against a Texas State defense, which they're basically average, came in 63rd. Best asset pass rush. Okay, you don't really have an opponent that's throwing, so that's not a huge difference maker. Like Tymir Jackson and Kennard Snyder are two of your best players. They're a little weaker in run defense. Jordan Sanders, DeVark Woods at defensive tackle, linebackers, Traylon Payne and Terrence Cooks. They're all solid. None of them are like real difference makers. So opponents have been able to run on this team at times, and they're going to rotate a lot of players onto that front. They used 8 on the defensive line alone. In the secondary, this is their weakest link. They're 84th. They have 3 good players in Rios, Nolan, and Minot. But you have consistent weak links across the board. Does it matter against Rice, who's not throwing the ball and is going to have a backup quarterback? I think the advantage here is Texas State. And then you get to the opposing offense, Texas State, when they have the ball. Brad Jackson, 71% completion percentage, 9.1 yards per attempt, 21 big-time throws, 11 turnover-worthy plays. The only concern, he took 23 sacks. His pressure-to-sack ratio was too high. That's the only real question that you have with him. Electric passer. And the offensive line was good. You lose your center to the portal, but every other player is experienced. And they have multiple interior players they could potentially move to center. Ezra Dotson-Oyatade is the most experienced guy they have on the roster that has played actual center, but they've used multiple guards this year. Maybe you could move like a Lysander Moyolo inside or kick in one of the guards and have him start. Regardless, center aside, tackles are elite. Dorian Strawn, Sully Burns. Inside, Justin DeLeon, when he's not banged up, has been awesome. It's a quality unit. They're a top 40 unit in the country. And the skill players are awesome too, starting with the running back position. Lincoln Pare has been great, 5.1 yards per carry, over 1,000 yards and 36 catches. Brad Jackson has 692 yards himself and 16 rushing touchdowns. And then even your change of pace, Greg Burrell has been solid. You only really use 2 receivers, but that's kind of enough. 931 yards for Dawn, 1,113 for Sparks. Their third leading receiver was a running back, but I don't really care. You're talking 2,000 receiving yards between 2 guys. That'll play against this Rice defense, which comes in 125th. No need to spend a lot of time here. They have 1 stud edge rusher. That's the only position group that's been even above average. That's Tony Anianwu. The rest of this group is kind of atrocious. They don't really have any decent linebackers. Ty Morris and Andrew Awe. Secondary had multiple injuries this year, forcing in some really questionable guys. Jarek Harper and Omari Porter were both atrocious back there. Rice finished 125th in total defense. This should be a Texas State field day. Special teams also favor Texas State, 98-57. Looking at the model, we currently do show some value on Texas State. We make this minus 27.5. Now I'm accounting for opt-outs. Make the total 53.6. This is some of the most value we've shown on a number. The only hesitation I have is Rice is going to try to use that triple option and slow it down. They're 123rd in pace. Texas State will play fast, but it is a tricky offense to prepare for, and defense for that matter. It's my only hesitation, but I fully anticipate playing this. Just waiting to see. Hopefully we don't get any last-second Texas State opt-outs. That could change my mind, but I don't see it. We're going to be on the Texas State side in some capacity. Maybe an over team total, just not 100% sure how to play it, but we're going to be playing something on Texas State. Next up, we get to Cincinnati taking on Navy in the Liberty Bowl. This is played in Memphis, Tennessee. Right now, we have this as a touchdown spread in favor of the Naval Academy. A 55.5 total, still pretty high. No major coaching changes for either team, but we do have a lot of opt-outs. They're all on Cincinnati. Navy, hard to transfer in and out. They don't really have a problem with that. But Brendan Sorsby at QB, both starting running backs, Pryor and Walker. Ethan Green's a reserve tackle. On the defensive line, you lose both Coleman and Corleone. That's huge. Jake Golday, stud linebacker, off to the NFL, and they lost 4 starters in the secondary. This could be a disaster. Navy is at full strength. To get here, Cincinnati beat Iowa State and Baylor. Those are really only their 2 notable wins. They lost to Nebraska by 3, got blown out by Utah. Arizona, they lost by 6. lose to BYU by 12, and blown out to TCU. They faded down the stretch hard. Navy, their best wins are against Rice, South Florida, and they should have lost, 37% post-game win expectancy, and Army in that crazy game that was a standalone a couple weeks ago. They played a really weak schedule. Only teams they lost to were North Texas and Notre Dame. They were blown out in both. So Navy's a tricky team to evaluate given they played basically the entire bottom of the American. Let's start with Cincinnati because we don't have Sorsby. So longtime backup Brady Lichtenberg should start this game. He has a 58% career completion percentage, 2 big-time throws, 4 turnover-worthy plays. He does look a little bit mobile. We don't know a lot about this guy. He has been in college for 4 years. He's a 3-star recruit. He hasn't gotten a look in all this time, so I'm hesitant to say he's a real difference maker. We currently have him graded as like your run-of-the-mill backup in the model. So just for reference, when we talk about spreads, that's kind of how we're viewing him, not really expecting much. And the redeeming quality, I guess, for him is they might not throw the ball at all. Their offensive line is, if not at full strength, I mean, if they have a last-second opt-out, that's possible. But right now, it looks like their entire starting 5 is going to be out there. And they had an elite right side. They were very good on the interior through their center position. Joe Cotton was awesome. Evan Tengsdahl was awesome. The only guy that was a mess was DeAndre Buford. He's the only one. He's your left tackle. I mean, they've used him kind of at both tackle positions. I'm not sure where he'll go. But anyway, this should provide solid blocking for Lichtenberg. They should be able to run, even with Pryor and Walker not expected to play. Manny Covey and Zion Johnson were both very efficient, albeit on 32 carries. We'll see what they can do against a real defense. But the wide receiver room is also intact. Cyrus Allen, he's not expected to opt out, 665 yards just behind him, where Caleb Goody and Jeff Caldwell also have your tight end, Joe Royer. They're all expected to play. Basically, all you're doing is removing the quarterback and the starting running back from this offense. The rest of it, assuming there's no opt-outs, is intact. Navy's defense was a mess this year. 117th. The only unit that ranked inside the top 110 was their 57th ranked pass rush. And again, I think you're probably going to see Cincinnati ease off the pass attempts in this game after they ranked 59th in pass rate this year. I don't trust anyone really on the defensive line. Landon Robinson's okay. Luke Pierce is okay. But they have some significant weak links up here, like Willis at defensive tackle. Linebackers, a lot of the same. Mark Anthony Parker had an atrocious season. And then the secondary, if they do throw the ball, Cincinnati that is, you're throwing at the 129th ranked coverage in the nation. I mean, Navy has been so bad in the secondary, they've just been basically trotting out different freshmen every single week. We've seen Cam Robinson, we've seen Maxwell Williams. They do not have answers back here, and this is their 13th game. We're in a bowl game. This is a disaster for them. Now, when Navy has the ball, also extremely hard to prepare for, especially when you're trying to get your portal class together. Historically, the armed forces perform well in bowls. And Blake Horvath is probably the best quarterback we've seen for an armed force team since, maybe Malcolm Perry. Anyway, he actually can throw. He is averaging 10.1 yards per pass. Only took 6 sacks. 13 big-time throws, 6 turnover-worthy plays. He's not just a glorified running back, but he is very good at that as well. He led the team with 1,147 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, 15 touchdowns for Blake Horvath. And they actually have options. 3 legitimate threats. Texa, Heidenreich, Chapman. They can all run. Heidenreich is also an amazing receiver. He has 877 yards. The offensive line's not bad. They're good where it counts, 42nd in run blocking. This is an awesome offense. Cincinnati, they were good in run defense. That is by far their best skill. But now I'm worried. You lost. First of all, they run a 3-man front. And up front, you're removing Jake Golday, your NFL linebacker. You're removing Dante Corleone, your stud nose. And you're removing your best edge, Micah Coleman. They also are losing 4 starters in the secondary. If Heidenreich gets loose, or basically you were taking 7 new guys, putting them on the field and asking them to defend the triple option. It seems like a mess to me. We actually lean over in this game. The over-under is 55.5. It actually took some money. We make it 56.5. Part of that is pacing. We're not showing a ton of value on either the side or the total. Again, we make it 56.5. We make the number -6. So a tiny bit of value on the over, tiny bit of value on Cincinnati. If we play anything, it is going to be the over in this game with Navy struggles and Cincinnati playing all these new guys against the option. Next, we've got the legendary Duke's Mayo Bowl played in Charlotte, North Carolina between Mississippi State and Wake Forest. Currently a 3-point spread in favor of Mississippi State, 53 total. This is an awesome game. No coaching changes. Opt-outs include Blake Shapen, kind of ran him out either way. Jordan Mosley at receiver. It's a lot of guys basically that lost their starting job already from Mississippi State, so I won't get into them. A couple transfers, but no one of note. Wake Forest, Damon Claiborne, their running back, is going to the NFL. They lost a few transfers that are important. Micah Mays and Chris Barnes at receiver, both were contributors. Barnes was their leading receiver. Newer Gotkuth is going to the NFL. He was also hurt at the end of the year. And Mateen Ibrogba at the defensive tackle position is hitting the portal for Wake Forest. To get here, Mississippi State only beat 2 bowl-eligible teams, Southern Miss and Arizona State. They lost to basically everyone in the SEC except Arkansas, but they kept it close against a couple of them, like Florida, for example. Wake Forest beat Kennesaw State by 1 point, SMU by 1 point, and Virginia by a touchdown. They smashed Delaware, but those are their bowl-eligible wins. They lost to NC State, Georgia Tech, Florida State, and Duke. So this will be start number 2 for Kamario Taylor with Mississippi State. Passing numbers are reasonable in a very small sample, so I want to see more. He has a 54.5% completion percentage. It could be a lot better if his receivers didn't drop 4 of his passes already. And for reference, he hasn't thrown a lot of passes, so 4 drops, that's 12% of the passes he's thrown. He's also extremely mobile. He already somehow has 395 yards. He's played in spot duty and gotten 1 start. He's at 6.2 yards per carry. So yeah, Mississippi State, 74th in rushing efficiency. I'm expecting this to climb. Fluff Bothwell's back from injury. Devon Booth should be fine. They combined for over 1,000 yards and 28 catches. And then the receivers. The main ones are probably going to play. Not expecting anything. This would require a last-second opt-out. Brennan Thompson, 948 yards. Anthony Evans, 751. Seydou Traore, 358. It's a pretty good group of skill players for Kamario Taylor. And then the O-line. First thing, they tried to work Jimothy Lewis and Luke Work at times this year. They were both horrible. They both got benched. And Albert Reese and Javen James, the replacements, were still below average, but instead of being like black holes in the offense, they were just below average. So this Mississippi State O-line has a chance to be a little better than the numbers indicate. The interior was already much better. Cannon Boone and Jacoby Jackson were solid. Only Zach Owens was kind of questionable. So expecting this O-line to come in around average, we'll see. The Wake Forest defense is strong. They didn't play the best strength of schedule, and they did get beat a couple times. Virginia, NC State could run on them. Florida State and Duke passed the ball on them. I don't know where Mississippi State falls on this hierarchy, but I tend to think with a dual threat quarterback, they might have some success running the ball, especially with Ibrogba and Gotkuth expected to miss this game. They're still okay inside. Langston, Hardy, Jaden Loving are all right. Gabe Kirschke's on a decent edge defender, but they are losing 2 of their best 3. Linebacker's a good position, should be at full strength with Hall, Hazen, and Bryant. And the secondary does have 4 elite defensive backs with Webb, Prunty, Patterson, and Anderson. What I'll say here, though, with Mississippi State expected to run more, play at the speed of light with fewer bodies, Wake Forest's weakness was already run defense, and that's where we're pulling a couple guys out of the defense. So I think Mississippi State does have some success. I don't know how much, but probably some. Meanwhile, Wake Forest, what a weird season for them offensively. Robbie Ashford, you know what he is. 59% completion percentage, 7.5 yards per attempt, 16 big-time throws, 15 turnover-worthy plays. It's actually better than I thought. His receivers dropped 19 passes. That was 10% of his on-target passes. At the end of the day, though, with Ashford, it's the same old story. He can throw on your NC States of the world. He can't throw on teams like SMU. As soon as you start facing a better defense, the Wake Forest offense evaporates. The O-line this year was actually way better than I expected, and this was still a weird unit, 26th in pass blocking, 114th in run blocking. They couldn't run block. It should be no surprise that Damon Claiborne had an awful season. They were 116th in rushing efficiency. Claiborne's not even going to play here, so I presume Ty Clark is going to play. Anyway, they couldn't run regardless, even with Ashford a part of it. But they could pass block a little bit. Like Melvin Siani, Fa'alili, Fa'amo were okay. Your interior wasn't too bad. The problem is you're down 2 receivers, real contributors, especially Barnes. He led the team in receiving. He also doubles as your special team kick returner and stuff. But so you have an elite pass blocking unit, or at least a good pass blocking unit. What are you pass blocking for? You're pass blocking for a QB that can't make decisions. So it's kind of all for naught. The offense was just disjointed the entire season. Mississippi State's defense is not all that great, though. They come in 108th. They don't really have a strong unit anywhere. Best is their coverage unit at 79th, and that comes down kind of to just 2 players with Kelly Jones and Isaac Smith. Smith was hurt, and he's back now, which definitely helps them. But, I mean, the linebacker room is up and down. 2 good guys, 2 bad guys. The bad ones, Tillman and Lockhart. Same thing up front. They rotated 8 guys when you look at the edge and defensive tackle group together. Jennings and Silla were all right. Bingley Jones was okay inside, but they had plenty of weaknesses. That was in the SEC. Wake Forest played in the ACC and couldn't score in that conference. So my intuition says that this is probably a Mississippi State or pass. But then you get to the math, and honestly, we make this basically flipped. Wake Forest slightly favored. Total in the game we have at 55. I don't know if I have the heart to bet a Robbie Ashford, even as a 3-point underdog. Not to mention, I think Mississippi State's going to continue taking money. This is just a wait-and-see game. We have a better feel on the first 2 compared to this one. This is the game I am least likely to take. So let's get to our final game. Our first actual bet of the day. I mean, we are going to take something on Texas State. I'm probably going to play something on the over in the Navy game. But this one we already did take. SMU plus a 3. I would still play a +1 for a number of reasons. Before we get ahead of ourselves, though, this is the Holiday Bowl. It's played in San Diego. SMU right now is a 1-point underdog. The total in the game is 52 points. We have no major coaching changes, not expecting many opt-outs, at least right now. So SMU has been re-signing a lot of players. Anyone you might be worried about, like Kevin Jennings, they're expected to come back for the most part. The only guy that was injured was Isaiah Nakobia. He was a safety this year. He only played 17 snaps in their last game, had a month off. Arizona has a lot of potential opt-outs. They asked the coach, and he said something along the lines of he was going to respect the privacy of the players. That's not no. They had a really good secondary, especially. I think there's going to be some Arizona opt-outs at the last second that we just don't know about. Also had some injuries. Tristan Bounds has been hurt on the O-line. Trey Smith is out for the year on the edge. Deshaun McKnight, defensive tackle, only played 5 snaps in their last game. Javion Cole's been banged up. He only made it through 8 snaps as well. There's more questions with Arizona. To get here, SMU beat Missouri State, Clemson, Miami in overtime, and Louisville. They did drop games to Baylor, TCU, Wake Forest by a point, and Cal by 3 points. 2 of those games, they had post-game win expectancies above 50%. They shot themselves in the foot. And then the Wake Forest game was about as the 2 games they should have won were Baylor and Cal. And then losing to Wake Forest by a point is a disaster in and of itself. Arizona was a little bit scattershot this year. They beat Kansas State, Cincinnati, Baylor, and Arizona State, but they dropped games to Iowa State and they got blown out in that game. BYU and Houston. Houston, they should have won, so that is what it is. Speaking of weird season for Kevin Jennings. 66% completion percentage, 7.9 yards per attempt, 21 big-time throws, 13 turnover-worthy plays, and 20 sacks. Couple things. First of all, he stopped running entirely. That was a big part of his game last year, just not a part of his game this year. I know he got banged up at times, but a bit disappointing. Passing stats took a step back. Part of that was his receivers dropped 22 passes, 7.3% of his on-target balls. It was a good season for Jennings. It was not as good as 2024. And part of the problem, I think, is just the offense didn't always use their best personnel. For example, TJ Harden had an awful season. 4.6 yards per carry. They used him way too often. The second they start cutting his snaps and involving Chris Johnson, Derek McFallmore, the run game improves. So they come in 94th. I think there's room for them to reach a little bit higher, maybe average. But again, not using Jennings at all is kind of a concern. And then the drops. The receiver room just took a step back from last year. Jordan Hudson, Romello Brinson, they were fine, but they didn't have a consistent wide receiver too. Yamir Knight was the closest thing there. Their former stud tight end, RJ Maryland, just couldn't get on the field. They were using Matthew Hibner above him. So it was a weird season. And their four-star freshmen, they had two of them, played a lot in the beginning of the year and then evaporated at the end. So kind of perplexing personnel decisions throughout the season. One thing that was awesome for this team was the offensive line. Great unit, especially on the right side. The only guy that was somewhat a problem was Savion Byrd at left tackle, and even he was above average. But PJ Williams was a monster. Addison Nichols was good. Bates was fine. Parr was fine. Pretty good unit. Arizona was 17th in defense. Their main strength was their coverage unit where they were second. And again, they had some elite players. Genesis Smith, Dalton Johnson, Traden Stukes, Michael Dansby, Aiden Garnes. I think you're getting at least one to opt out, if not multiple. Again, coach wouldn't talk about it. But these were good players. Some of them have NFL futures. Their linebacker room is pretty good too with Brown, Harris, and Riley Wilson. Up front is where I'm concerned with this team, and I think SMU can probably impose their will on the ground with that O-line if they want to. They were good in run defense, but there's a couple questions, especially like McKnight got banged up in week 14. There is a big drop-off to Paolo and Pese if they need to go there. And then some of this was just having decent edge defenders via the run game. They did not rush the passer well. Riley Wilson and Chase Kennedy, these are players that were good run defenders, not the best pass rushers. So SMU, I do think, has some success here, especially given we don't know the status of a lot of the Arizona players. Meanwhile, when Arizona has the ball, good season for Noah Fafita, 64% completion, 7.7 yards per attempt, 22 big-time throws, only 9 turnover-worthy plays, 5 interceptions. He did take 25 sacks. A lot of these numbers are actually comparable to Jennings. His receivers did drop 22 passes as well, 8.2% of his on-target plays. So what went wrong with this team? First of all, the offensive line, it wasn't really an issue for them, but it also wasn't a strength. They come in with the 48th ranked offensive line, and it's not imbalanced either. They were basically all slightly above average. Not one weakness, not one strength. I mean, I guess if you want to poke some holes, like the interior was a little weaker with Maye, DeCambra, and Deuced. Still, this was a pretty decent unit. The run game, they were forcing Reese Cano in there a lot, and he started battling some injuries throughout the season. Quincy Craig and Ismail Mahdi actually had more efficiency than him. They combined for 1,500 yards, 29 catches. It was an average run game as well. And then the receivers were slightly below average. They were basically rotating 6 guys out there, led by Chris Hudson, 740 yards, and Javin Watley was second. But there was very little separating Watley from like a Trey Spivey or Chris Hunter, Luke Wysong, Gio Richardson. They use 6 receivers routinely. That doesn't even include tight ends. It was kind of a weird offense for Arizona that took advantage of the weaklings and struggled against some of the better teams. SMU's defense is a quality unit. They were good across the board, especially defending the run, so not expecting much success for Reese Cano or Craig. Isaiah Robertson and Isaiah Smith lead off the edge, as was Ja'Kai Lang. Pretty good inside with Jeffrey Emba, Terry Webb, Keviante Spears. Linebackers, this was a unit that was hurt early in the year. They really got healthy and other players to step up. Kilgore and Booker were solid. Even the stud safeties, Nicobia and Moses, they started the year a little slow, picked it up down the stretch. Deuce Harmon was an excellent corner. The real only weakness was Kyron Chambers for this team. But ultimately, I think SMU's defense could do a lot of the work in this game, not even requiring Kevin Jennings to do a lot. But either way, there are advantages for SMU. We make this SMU -1. So flip the spread. That is where we have it. As for the total in the game, we currently have this at 51.4. So very little value one way or the other there. But we will play SMU. Otherwise, that does it for us today. We will be back for playoff coverage. Until then, thank you for watching. We will see you guys again soon, and good luck.